An ideal director and an ideal conductor would be a person who is actually interested in a collaboration. It isn't possible, as in days of old, when singers were very rarely trained musicians. They had learned to sing wonderfully, but they had not necessarily studied art history or music literature, and therefore found themselves listening to the conductor and accepting what perhaps that person would have to say about the interpretation of a role or the interpretation of a song or an aria. That isn't true these days. We go to conservatories, we go to universities, and we learn as the conductors do. So, and as the directors do. And so an ideal person in either of these positions for me would be one who is able to talk and discuss and to listen, and for us to come to a mutual decision as to how we are going to proceed. I say this so often to my younger colleagues. I was having a conversation the other day with a beautiful coloratura soprano. It is a beautiful voice. You're going to hear lots from her. And she was getting ready to sing the Exultate Jubilate. And she's got, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. And I said, now what is the tempo that you need in order to sing that particular part? And she said, this is the tempo. I said, now that is what you have to say to the conductor. You've only got 2 rehearsals. You don't have time to learn how quickly he wants to do this. What he has to do is to listen to you. And she said, oh, I couldn't possibly. I said, well, then you're going to be in trouble. And by the time I let her go, poor darling, she'd come around to the idea that it probably would be possible to say to the conductor that at this point in her life, at this point in her training, at this point in her experience, this is the tempo that she would need to sing that particular part. And being me, of course, I called her after the performance. I said, how'd it go? She said, do you know he said okay? He said, all right. I said, yes. They don't all bite.
And what about directors?
Directors can be a little bit more complicated. Because a lot of directors coming to opera these days have done other things, film and stage works for the spoken word, and they really haven't the faintest idea about singing. And I write in my book a very short passage about sort of being sort of my usual busybody self. And we were rehearsing, and a younger singer than I was singing another part in the opera. And the director wanted her to rush up a flight of stairs and sing, which of course would be fabulous if you could. And so, you know, she, bless her heart, she was trying, she'd rush up the stairs and out of breath, and I stood by. Of course, it had nothing to do with me. I'm not even in the scene. And my character's not in the scene. And so when there was time for us to have a little break, I said to the conductor, could I have a word, the director? Could I have a word? And he said, oh, what is it, Ms. Norman? And so I said, physics would tell us. That it is really rather difficult to run up against gravity and have something left in the lungs at the top of it. It is possible to run downstairs and sing, but running upstairs and singing is just a tad more difficult. And if it were possible that she might run up maybe the last 2, and it might give the same effect, except that her lungs would not be empty. And she could possibly do this. She's young, and why not? And he listened thinking, I wish she would leave me alone. But we did try it. And in the end, she sang absolutely beautifully because she was no longer worried about the one part of the opera that was disturbing her, not her voice, not her part, but the action. That, of course, you can imagine it. It would look fantastic, this sort of marvelous sort of character, and they was sort of rushing up a flight of stairs in a beautiful dress, and she can't wait to see her lover. But, of course, you can't sing. It's a nice thought, but it wasn't working. And to his credit, I have to admit that the director didn't know. He'd never worked with a singer before. He'd only worked in the spoken word theater and in film. So in film, of course, you can rush up the stairs and singing because the singing is coming from a track. But that sort of thing happens, and I've had my own personal moments when I've had to say, that is a wonderful idea. It would be lovely, but it's not possible. And I hope that we will be able to come to a different decision.
And did you?
Mm-hmm.